and no hope for tomorrow. I've been in a hopeless situation today, but the God in me reminded me that tomorrow was going to be a better day. And so even though I would have been depressed and defeated, and to be honest, sometimes I did get depressed and defeated, but somewhere along the line, the Spirit of God reminded me that God had a better tomorrow for me. And so even though I was going through, and even though sometimes I didn't have what I needed to have, I was assured that somehow God was going to make a way out of no way. Is there anybody here that has experienced God making a way out of no way? Is there anybody here that has experienced God making a way out of no way? Is there anybody in the balcony that has experienced God? I could tell you so many stories, and in fact, I'm going to deviate and tell you one just real quick one. I got transferred from the company's Boston office to their Pittsburgh office. I was excited about going home to Pittsburgh because that was my hometown. But when I showed up to the office, the boss didn't like me from the first day I came in. And for 2 years, he spent 2 years tormenting me. When I traveled, he said I should stay home. When I was home, he said I should be traveling. If I said buy, he said sell. If I said, you know, you're right, we ought to sell, he said I lacked the courage of my conviction. And there was nothing that I could do to please him. Anybody ever been in that situation on your job? I tell this story because a lot of folk face job problems. And so I was having trouble with my boss, and he was just tormenting me. And one day he talked to me so bad, Bishop, that I went deaf. And all I could see him was just talking to me like this. And the devil told me, I could see his pulse beating on the side of his head. And the devil said, if you just hit him there. Now, y'all all too deep. Y'all ain't never had that kind of thought. And I'm going to be honest, I considered it, but I didn't want to do the time. So I packed up my briefcase, and I said to myself, I'm going home, and I'm never going back to work again. I packed up my little briefcase, went and talked to my father. He was old school, and I told him how bad it was. I even cried a little bit. Dad, they taken me through. He said, boy, if you don't get up out of here. He said, I dug ditches to raise these kids. You sitting up in the air, get out of. So I packed up my little briefcase. I went home. My wife encouraged me. She put her arms around me, and she said, baby, you know, I love you. And she said, you know, let me tell you this. The reason I married you is because you're the kind of man that can take something. She said, now we just built a new house, and one of the kids was getting braces, and she said, we got commitments, but I believe that somewhere before the morning that you're the kind of man that can be able to get up and go back to work. That was what my daddy said. But she said it so much nicer. So I had a sleepless night. My pajamas were soaking wet. I struggled during the night about what I was going to do. And the Lord told me to get up and go to work. And so I got up hard-headed, didn't want to go. I got in the shower and ran all the hot water out the tank. Went to work, stopped at all the yellow lights, trying to delay the inevitable. And when I walked into the office, the receptionist said to me that Les Rawson, the senior vice president from the home office, waiting for you on the phone. Now, who ever heard of them calling and waiting for you? The devil said, you should have quit. They're going to fire you. So when I picked up the phone, he said, hey, Ed, how you doing? How's the wife and kids? The devil said, see, he's setting you up. So I'm listening to all this, you know, kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. And he said, look, yesterday at about 3:30, it was about 3:30 that I was watching Fred's head. And he said about 3:30, he said, look, we were reviewing the progress of the Pittsburgh office, and we were very unhappy with it, and we made a decision that we need to make a change. He said, we reviewed your work ethic and your performance, and he said, after reviewing everything, we decided instead of going out in the office, that effective immediately, you're in charge of the office. And everybody is reporting to you. Y'all know I needed a praise break. So I went in the men's room. And I thought of the words of David. He said, when the wicked, even mine enemy, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and they fell. He said, though an host shall encamp against me, in this will I be confident. One thing have I desired of the Lord, and that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in the secret of his. Oh, so I know God can do it. I know God can do it. Tell your neighbor he can do it. He can do it. Let me stay with this story. So the man in the text had no hope, and his condition was so prominent that all the people would see it. That was the first thing they saw, and that's what he was remembered for. How sad it is to be known by a condition. I want to be known by my best, not my worst. I want to be known by what I can do and not what I can't do. But this man was known simply as the man with the withered hand. Nothing is said in the text about his family history. There's nothing recorded about his accomplishments. Nothing is said about where he went to school. It doesn't tell us whether he was married or single. Was he short or tall? Did he have children? What were his strengths? What were his weaknesses? Nothing is said about his overall appearance. Was he stout? Was he thin? Nothing is said about the color of his hair. Was he like me? Was he suffering from gravity on the head and hair falling to the floor? It says nothing about that. He is simply known as the man with a withered hand. It reminds me of other people I saw in the Bible that were known by their condition. There was the woman with the issue of blood. There was the insane man that ran through the tombs. There was the lepers. There was blind Bartimaeus. They were all known by their condition. They had one thing in common. They had a problem, and they were known by their problem. Can you think of anyone that resolves in your sphere of influence that is simply known by a negative condition? That all you think about when you think about them is what is wrong in their life? Some people are known for being poor. Some people are known for being sick. Some people are known for being depressed. Some people are known for being hard. Some people are known for being bitter, known by their condition. I have to be known for more than what's wrong in my life. I want people to focus on what is right, not what God has not done, but what God has done. Because when I focus on what God has done, I realize that he's able to do what has not yet been done. Anybody with me? That's why praise is comely for the upright. That's why we give God praise. It changes our perspective. When I think about the goodness of Jesus and all he has done for me, then I recognize God can do what needs to be done. Tell your neighbor, whatever it is, God can do it. Whatever it is, God has already done enough to show you that he is an able God, that there's nothing too hard. Come on, shout it out with me. Nothing too hard for God. Hallelujah. So since his life is not recorded up to this point, let's consider what his life was like, because there were no facts other than what was wrong. Because he was known by his condition, he was always made aware of his condition. He couldn't shake hands like other people, because when we walk up to somebody to shake, don't we shake with our right hand? Shake your neighbor's hand. Shake that neighbor's hand. You reached out with your right hand and embraced the right hand. But this man's right hand was withered. It was short. And so he could not shake hands. So every time he met somebody, he was forced to respond to their right hand with his left hand. What an awkward situation. What an awkward condition. What an embarrassment every time he met. And other folk don't handle awkward situations well. So based on how people act today, I can reasonably assume how people reacted to him back then. Somebody saw him coming and said, "Ooh, I don't want to touch him." Somebody saw him coming and turned down the other aisle to try to avoid an awkward situation. Some ignorant folk went up to him and looked him in the eye and said, "Man, what happened to your hand?" And he faced awkward situations every day. During the normal course of living all day, every day, he was reminded of his condition. So what he probably did was avoid people. You know, a lot of times when folk are avoiding you, it's because there's something they don't want you to see. And they don't want to tell you that there's something they don't want you to see. So the only way to get off of what they don't want you to see is they got to blame it on the church. They got to blame it on the pastor. They got to blame it on something else because that's intended to get your eyes off of the real problem. Y'all with me now? So this man had a problem. He reasoned that if I stay away from people, I won't be embarrassed because people always hurt me. And the more he stayed away from the people, the more odd he felt. And the more odd he felt, the more odd he began to behave. You know, folk can stay away from church for 2 or 3 months and come back to the church and say they don't show any love here. They come back to church and say, the message didn't do anything for me. One of the worst things I think I've ever heard is folk come to church and the message come forth and they say, I'm moving to another church, pastor, because I'm not getting fed here. You won't get fed at the buffet either if you don't open up your mouth. So I tell them, baby, that ain't the problem here. The problem is you don't know how to eat. Okay, because we definitely eating here. When I look around here, I know y'all is eating up in here. Y'all with me? Is the bishop throwing down? Do he bring the word? Is your life better? Is your life fulfilled? Are you going somewhere? Are all things possible? Come on, put your hands together and give God a praise. But this man reasoned that people always hurt me, and he stayed away from everybody. And then he probably resorted to trying to disguise his condition because so many people try to disguise their condition. You know, as long as you disguise your problem, you can't get any help. With God, you got to show what it is. You got to bring it to the altar, lay it at the altar. But this man, after going through so much hurt, probably decided to disguise it. So maybe he tried wearing long sleeve shirts. Maybe he tried even a Michael Jackson glove. Maybe he tried pretending that when he was walking, his right hand was always full. Maybe he tried to come up with all kinds of ideas on how he could get people's attention off of his problem. Do you know that people will go through enormous lengths to disguise their problem, people of God? They will do extraordinary things to try to cover what they know that they're worried that you're going to get to know. And so they'll go through great things. But no matter how hard he tried, problems simply cannot be disguised. Let me tell you a simple fact. Some of you think it's covered up. It's right out in the open. Your pastor can see through it, but in his dignity, in his understanding of people, in his ministry of people, he does not always say what he knows because he's waiting for the God moment to deal with your problem. And sometimes while he's waiting on the God moment, you think he don't know. Y'all with me on that? Anybody relate to that? When you finally tell him, sometimes he'll let you know he already knew and he was already praying for you. This was true in this story. No matter how hard this man tried to disguise his withered hand, everyone seemed to be fixated on his withered hand. So he felt different and separate, all alone and desperately lonely. He just didn't fit in. And every day he repeated that over to himself, over and over again, I don't fit in. Anybody ever hear anybody in the church say they don't fit in? You know how you won't fit in? You won't fit in if you don't fit in. You know, if you stand in the back and wait for everybody to come and shake your hand, if you won't go to any of the church socials, if you won't show up for the First Ladies program next Saturday, then you're never going to fit in. The way to fit in is get pretty in pink and show up for the First Ladies program. Show up for the bishop's program. You will fit in. But this man didn't fit in because he said he didn't fit in, and he lived up to his word. Things never changed because he spoke those things and he acted on them, and they became a reality in his life. Eventually, he accepted the idea that he was different, and that thought became so ingrained in his mind that it literally became a stronghold in his mind. You know a stronghold, it's a fortified fortress of evil thought. It's fortified by evil spirits to strengthen it and to cause you to hold on to it in the evidence of overwhelming information to the contrary. A stronghold will make you believe something crazy. That kind of happens when folk are by themselves. They open themselves up to strongholds. You need to be in the fellowship of the saints. When you're feeling crazy, you need to be around somebody to tell you that's crazy. Nobody around you to tell you that's crazy, so crazy become the norm. And you begin to operate and believe that, and then the normal people look crazy to you.